Your routine heart scan may already contain a warning about heart failure years before symptoms begin. The unsettling part is that most of that warning is not something a person can simply see. It may be hiding in the texture of the fat wrapped around the heart. That does not mean a scan can tell your future. It does not mean an algorithm has diagnosed you. It means researchers are learning how to extract additional risk signals from cardiac CT images that were originally taken for another clinical reason. General wellness education only, not medical advice. In April 2026, an Oxford-led team reported a study of 72,751 adults who had undergone coronary CT angiography at 9 UK centers. None had known heart failure or a previous heart attack when they entered the study. The research asked a specific question. Could the tissue around the heart reveal who is more likely to develop heart failure in the following years? To answer it, the team built an automated pipeline that segmented epicardial adipose tissue, the layer of fat that sits around the heart, and measured 1,655 features. Some describe volume and shape. Others describe tiny patterns and texture that ordinary visual reading does not quantify. Why look at fat? Because epicardial fat is not just passive packing material. It is metabolically active tissue, closely connected to the heart and coronary vessels. Signals from inflammation, fibrosis, vascular change, and metabolic stress may alter its composition. In that sense, the tissue can behave like a biological sensor. Think about frost forming on a window. The frost is not the weather itself, but its pattern tells you something about temperature and moisture on the other side of the glass. In the same way, the texture around the heart may reflect changes occurring in the muscle underneath. The model was developed in 59,327 people from 7 centers. It was then externally tested in another 13,424 people from 2 different centers. That separation matters. A model can look impressive when tested on data that resembles its training material. External testing asks whether the signal survives in a genuinely different clinical setting. During follow-up, 1,737 people in the development cohort and 363 in the external cohort developed heart failure. The resulting fat radiomic profile showed strong discrimination in both groups. The reported C statistic was about 0.87 internally and 0.85 externally. Those numbers describe how well the models separated higher risk from lower risk participants across the study population. They do not tell an individual what will happen with certainty. The contrast between the extremes was striking. People in the highest tenth of model scores had nearly 20 times the risk of heart failure compared with those in the lowest tenth. Oxford's summary also reported that the highest risk group had roughly a 1 in 4 chance of developing heart failure within 5 years. But relative risk can sound more dramatic than it is. A 20-fold difference does not mean everyone with a high score will become ill. It means the groups behaved very differently over time. The result must still be interpreted alongside age, symptoms, blood pressure, diabetes, coronary disease, kidney function, and other clinical information. This is the central promise. A scan already performed to investigate chest pain or coronary disease might provide another layer of information without adding a new invasive procedure. The opportunity is not to order CT scans for everyone. CT involves radiation and should be used for appropriate clinical reasons. The opportunity is to learn more from images that already exist. If the method eventually receives regulatory approval and proves useful in real-world care, it could help clinicians decide who may need closer monitoring, further evaluation, or more focused prevention. That might include a careful review of blood pressure, cholesterol, glucose, sleep, activity, symptoms, medication adherence, or follow-up timing. The algorithm would support the conversation. It would not replace it. There are important limits. The study was observational. A risk model can show association and prediction, but it does not prove that acting on the score will prevent heart failure. That requires prospective clinical trials. The model must also work across different populations, scanner manufacturers, image protocols, and healthcare systems. Bias is another concern. Even a very large data set can underrepresent particular communities. A score may be less reliable when a person differs from the populations used to build and test it. Good implementation would make uncertainty visible, monitor performance over time, and allow clinicians to understand why a warning appeared. There's also the question of false alarms. Earlier risk information is valuable only when it leads to proportionate action. If a score creates anxiety, unnecessary testing, or treatment without clear benefit, the technology has not succeeded. Precision prevention should mean better targeting, not simply more intervention. Privacy and governance matter too. The Oxford study used anonymized scans, but routine deployment would require secure data handling, transparent oversight, and clear responsibility for how results enter the medical record. Patients should know when automated analysis is being used and what the output can and cannot mean. The wider story is bigger than this one model. Medical images contain far more information than the few measurements traditionally reported. AI can quantify patterns in heart chambers, vessels, plaque, muscle, bone, and body composition. The challenge is turning those patterns into evidence that genuinely improves decisions. So the headline is compelling. AI may help identify heart failure risk at least 5 years before clinical onset using a routine cardiac CT scan. The careful version is more useful. A large multi-center study found that radiomic patterns in epicardial fat predicted future heart failure beyond conventional information, but the tool still needs regulatory review and prospective proof that using it improves outcomes. If you hear about an AI risk score from a medical image, ask for questions. What population trained it? Was it tested somewhere else? What happens after a high score? And has acting on the result been shown to help patients? Also ask whether the result can be explained in ordinary language. A useful warning should show its limits, point toward a sensible clinical discussion, and leave room for human judgment. Precision without context can look authoritative while still being misleading. Those questions separate an exciting signal from a finished medical tool. The future may not be a machine that reads your destiny. It may be a quieter system that notices subtle risk earlier, gives clinicians more time, and helps prevention begin with better information.